Hello, I'm just starting the webinar off now. I can see a few people are joining the call. Just to let you know that we're recording this webinar, but we can't see you or hear you for your own safety. It's just myself and the panelists on the screen. Hopefully, once we've got everyone in, we can make a start. I can see that some people are still joining the call, so I'll just give it a few minutes. Okay, if you just missed what I said there, I said that we are recording this webinar, but we can't see you or hear you. You're not on screen, just for your own safety. So it's just myself and the panelists in front of you. This webinar is brought to you by Placed. We are a social enterprise and we work all across the Northwest, engaging people from local communities in conversations about the places they live and work, what they love about those places, what they change and improve about those places. We also run an education programme all about the built environment for 13 to 19-year-olds, and that's called Placed Academy. You can find out more information about that on our website, including when the next programme will happen and how to apply. And this event today is part of our Placed Academy Insights, a series of free webinars for young people interested in careers in the built environment. Each week we'll have a panel of professionals from the sector talking about their own career journeys and experiences, sharing some of their knowledge and top tips about getting into the industry. And if you are able to sign up and attend all 10 of our free live events that make up this programme, we will award you with a certificate just to acknowledge your interest and commitment into finding out more information about the sector, which is something great for your CV and a little extra boost there for any university applications too. So really excited today to introduce you to our fantastic panel. We will be focusing on what it's like to be a planner and learning all about planning. What will happen is each of our three panelists, we have student planner Emily Bates, we have Daniel Strode, who's a planner for Leeds City Council, and we have Elizabeth Woodward from Tybald Planning and Urban Design. Each panelist will introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their work in a presentation for about 10 minutes, and then we'll open out to some questions from you guys. So the way you ask a question is you type your question in the Q&A box, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen. If you just type your question in there, and we'll try and cover it towards the end of the session. Any questions that we don't manage to answer in this live session, we'll make sure we follow up on. We're going to be sending an email out to you guys after the end of the 10-week long programme, so your question will definitely get a response at some point. So please put it in there. If someone types a question that actually you'd really would like to know the answer to yourself as well, just there's an option to like the question, so we'd encourage you to like it, and that will help sort of streamline that question up to the top. So yeah, feel free to type a question at any point during the event, and we will pick it up after we've listened to the presentations from our panelists. So let's start. Emily, we're going to start with you sharing your presentation with everyone here.
Can everyone see that now? Yeah. So, hi everyone, my name is Emily Bates, and I'm really looking forward to this evening's event where I get to tell you a little bit about my journey and what it's like to be a student planner, and hopefully shed a little bit of insight that will actually help you in your future. So, I thought it would only be fitting to start at the beginning of my planning journey. The same stage many of you find yourselves in now, GCSE and A-levels. So I did geography GCSE and graphic design, and I had an avid interest in both of them, but I didn't really know which to pursue at A-level, but in the end I pursued geography. And that allowed me to learn about some contemporary urban challenges, such as the urban heat island effect. And then that led on to me thinking about Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, which is a sustainable city. And then it also allowed me to learn about Chelsea High Line in New York, which I was actually lucky enough to visit, and it's absolutely incredible. But then I still didn't really know about planning, and I was still getting torn in two different directions between geography and design. And I was sat down one day in the sixth form common room, and I found the University of Liverpool prospectus, and I was flicking through, and I came across urban planning, and I didn't really know what it was about, but it seemed to mesh the two principles perfectly. So I went and booked myself on the open day, and it's actually where I study today. So I do the M-Plan Town and Regional Planning at the University of Liverpool. I'm now in my third year, so I specialise in transforming cities and regions, which focuses primarily on urban regeneration, but there is an alternative spatial planning for environmental change pathway as well. The planning school at the University of Liverpool, not to be biased or anything, it is the first one in England founded by Patrick Abercrombie, and that is a big selling point for the University of Liverpool, which they like to say every time on an open day. But personally, I chose to do the M plan due to the RTPI accreditation that comes with the degree, and also the collaborative departmental learning between geography and architecture. So I was able to take architecture modules and geography modules alike, so I could still pursue both of my passions under this discipline. And I'm also the current president of the Planning Society at the University of Liverpool. And one of my principal objectives for the society is ensuring that family network amongst your peer groups, which I believe is fundamental to the planning discipline as well, because at every networking event I've ever been to, it is like a family, and everyone has been through the same problems that you have, and everyone's there to help. So I think it is instrumental that you engage, which you are doing with the sector, and you can do this through the mentoring program. And we also have social media platforms at the University of Liverpool too, which you can follow. So I also believe one of the fundamental foundations to planning to be, again, the interdisciplinary nature of the sector. And this has been instilled in me from a student, as my urban design work shows here, just to show you a little bit of my work as a student. And you can do planning, law and governance, property development, and real estate and surveying as well, modules on the degree. And it enables you to understand the developed of the built environment holistically, to engage everyone from young to old. And it has a diverse range of social media platforms. So it has LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, even has TikTok. And they publish interviews and question and answer sessions with industry experts from all ages of their career and passions. And that's sure to align with one of yours and spark that avid interest, and essentially get your cogs ticking. This is something that you can actually do and see yourself working in. So some of these TikTok videos are ones I created. And so I did obviously one on hidden heritage buildings in England. I did one on piazza architecture in Italy. So it's needless to say, I advocate following these platforms just to, you must enjoy it if you sat here or have a little bit of an interest. So it gives you that further insight, I think. And nowadays we're always sat on our phone, and even if we try not to, so it's something that can be educational as well. So to nearly conclude this PowerPoint on what it's like to be a student planner on this penultimate slide, I personally think it's exciting. It's exciting that all the possibilities are endless in the ways in which you create a better built environment. There's so many disciplines and future job prospects. The difficulty comes in narrowing them down, which is why, again, it's so important to gain as much experience as you can in the different sectors, so you can acknowledge what excites you and what you enjoy. Finally, I would just like to say I am still on this journey like everyone else, including the industry experts, and we are constantly evolving as the urban environment ceases to be static. The built environment sector is collaborative, diverse, innovative, and complex. And for me, the Urban Design Group quote stating urban design as the design of towns and cities and streets and spaces is a collaborative and multidisciplinary process of shaping the physical setting for life in cities, towns, and villages, the art of making places in an urban context, and designs the groups of buildings and spaces between them and landscapes, and the establishment of frameworks and processes that facilitate successful development is personally exciting to me. I'm excited to see what you find exciting, but thank you for listening, and I welcome and look forward to any questions you may have, and hopefully I didn't fill you with too much information and speak too fast during that.
Thank you so much, Emily. Some really great tips there to future students and encouraging people to be passionate about what they're doing and getting themselves out there. So thank you so much. Over to you, Daniel, to present your little intro. If you'd like to show your screen.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Daniel Strode. I'm a planner at Leeds City Council. Just first of all, I wanted to give a brief introduction into town planning, which Emily's done as well. So town planners decide how land should be used or protected, deciding where things should be built, and also creating attractive, safe, and environmentally friendly places. And this involves discussion and negotiating with a wide range of people. So that kind of gives a brief introduction. I'm going to try and explain in terms of what it is through my own experience and the jobs I've had. So in terms of my journey, after doing A-levels, I initially started studying civil engineering at uni. But for me, there was a lot of maths and calculations, and I realised that wasn't suitable for me and my interests. Whilst my tutor at the time was also a town planner as well as an engineer, and he advised that it could be a good route for me because I've always had an interest in architecture and buildings, and particularly how buildings together create a sense of place. And so he thought that would be a good different career move for me. So I did a undergraduate degree, and following that I did a master's degree as well in planning. And then initially I started working for a private planning consultancy, but currently I'm working in the local authority side for Leeds City Council. So just to briefly touch on my time at university, I really enjoyed studying planning at uni. Particularly in my master's year, I specialised in urban design. So we're doing a lot of design work, which I found really enjoyable. And we went to went on a field trip to Barcelona, which I really enjoyed. So for me, it was incredibly interesting learning about the history of how towns develop and why we plan in certain ways. So I think it was very valuable for me. I would say that town planners do come from quite a broad range of areas, and I know people have done different degrees who have then gone to do town planning. So it's not a necessity to study town planning at uni, but it was definitely helpful for me and I really enjoyed it. So my first job after uni was working for a private planning consultancy, and a project that I worked on was that we had a client who build these battery energy storage systems. So this is technology which holds renewable energy and distributes it into the network at times of high demand. So it kind of makes renewable energy more efficient. But the problem with these systems is they're often located in countryside areas, close to neighbourhoods in some cases. And so it was my role and my colleagues at the company to try and put forward an argument to the council that this would be kind of suitable for different sites. So just wanted to give an idea of a specific example of this, where our client wanted to put one of these battery storage systems on the land which is identified in that red box there next to the substation. But we had to make sure that this wasn't going to cause any harm to any local housing, and also make sure it doesn't harm any ecology and biodiversity, making sure that there's no noise issues, and it wasn't going to harm the visual impact of the area. So this involved us putting together a kind of a package of documents to give to the council to apply for planning permission. So on the right there, you see that's an extract from the noise assessment, just showing that the area in red, near where these battery storage are, there's some noise, but as soon as you get into the green areas, there's not that much noise. So you can see the grey buildings on the left of the picture, that's the houses, and they wouldn't be affected by the noise from the battery storage. And then at the bottom there, there's a picture of the visual impact assessment done, just to show how it's going to impact on the public footpath and the road nearby. So it's about, we were putting together a package and looking at the different assessments just to show that this would be a suitable development for that specific bit of land, which we put forward to the council. Currently in my role at the moment, I'm working for a local authority, so Leeds City Council, and so I deal with planning applications submitted to the council. So in different cases, I get applications with architect's drawings and some other technical information, and I have to make an assessment on, is it an appropriate use for that bit of land? Is it an appropriate development for the area? So as a council, we get about 5,000 planning applications a year, which have to be assessed. It can often be just house extensions, where as planners we have to assess on the concerns for impact on neighbouring amenity. So things like overlooking and overshadowing and overdominance, and also the visual impact as well of the proposal. How is the extension going to affect the character of the area? But there can also be other considerations we have to look at, such as, is it going to impact on trees and ecology, wildlife? Is there going to be sufficient parking? And so is there going to be transport implications? So we have to kind of make that assessment on a variety of things. And just to take a example specifically, so this is a proposal for a brewery and a bar in an industrial area. So this was an application submitted to the council wanting to get planning permission for this development. So again, I was involved in working out an assessment just to see if it was going to be suitable for the land and the land use. So this involved an assessment based on the impact on heritage, because it was in a conservation area, and some of the buildings are very old, which have kind of historical importance, because Leeds has a very strong industrial history. So heritage impact was one, ecology impact. There was a local nature reserve nearby. Had to make sure there's going to be sufficient parking and no impact on highway safety. And there's a variety of considerations which I have to just assess and make sure that the development is suitable for that bit of land. And this can usually involve me discussion with my colleagues for the various technical information. So at the council, we have kind of specialist highways people and people in the nature team, which we have to kind of collaborate with just to make sure this assessment is sound and just to see if that development is suitable. Now, in the council, there's another side to it where my colleagues are producing strategic documents showing what they think would be the best land uses for certain areas. So this is looking at different parts of the city and looking at which green spaces should be protected, which areas should we promote for housing development, which areas are the town centres where commercial activity should be focused. And so they put together strategic documents which is meant to guide development. So this is just another example of kind of different kind of strategic documents that are produced. And it's all about looking at different parts of the land and seeing if they should be protected or if that could be a suitable site for development. So sometimes landowners will submit sites to the council and say we would like to have housing on this site, and that's something which the council would assess and see if it could be part of the kind of strategic document for the city. And there's other things they look at, including highways infrastructure. So at the city at the moment, there's a lot of focus on improving cycle lanes and bus lanes in the city centre, as well as improving the design and the public realm as well. That's what they're involved in. It's the kind of two sides of the council, both in dealing with planning applications and then producing strategic documents. And so in terms of my experience, the positives for me in working in planning is because I'm really interested in the built environment and being able to have some sort of influence in this, I think is really rewarding for me. Although at the moment I am predominantly just sat at my desk at home because we're not able to get out very much. But feeling like we can influence the area nearby is something which I find very valuable. Some of the challenges can be difference in opinions on different land and the uses of different land. So this can be sometimes quite challenging because people have strong opinions and you have to try and negotiate with those people. But it is something you definitely get used to. And then finally, I just thought that on the RTPI website, there's a really good section about becoming a planner and some more advice and some more information about planning in general, which I think everyone, if they're interested, should go and look. So there's some really valuable stuff on there. But yeah, that's me.
Thanks so much, Daniel. It was really interesting to see those examples of the different types of projects that you've worked on, to see those images to really illustrate the variety that there is in planning and through your experience. Thank you, and thanks for sharing the link as well. Okay, so we'll move to Lizzie before we start answering some of your questions. I can see that you're putting some through now, so Lizzie, if you want to share your screen. Right.
Hoping this works. It's quite daunting not being able to see any faces, so I'm just talking to a screen, but maybe that's better. So yeah, my name's Lizzie Brindwood-Woodward. I'm a planning consultant for Tibbalds Planning and Urban Design. Oh, sorry, no, let me go next. There you go. So similar to the other two, I kind of had no idea about planning when I was in school. I wanted to go down the architecture route. I knew that I was interested in design. And I actually happened upon a placed event in 2012, which kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of other roles within the built environment other than architecture. I grew up in Liverpool, and around this time we had the European Capital of Culture, and lots of money was being pumped into the city, but then there were also these areas that were actually still quite deprived and didn't seem to be benefiting from that, and I wondered why that was and what kind of role I could have in maybe shaping and rectifying what we would call kind of urban decay. And of course, the answer is planning, the answer to all life's questions. So I moved on down to London and did an undergraduate degree in urban planning and urban design at UCL, which was a RTPI planning accredited course, like Emily discussed, and I think Daniel just discussed as well. I'm not convinced this baby actually knows what planning is, but there we go. And then after uni, I joined Tibbalds Planning and Urban Design in 2017. We're a multidisciplinary practice, so that means we're made up of planners, architects, urban designers, and the whole ethos of the company really is creating people-friendly places. So bringing together communities and architects and property developers and councils to ensure that developments we're promoting are genuinely good developments and not just kind of desolate wastelands. There's some quite cringy images of us playing football. Someone sent this to me and I thought it was quite interesting. What is a planner? The second image I thought was quite funny. I genuinely have a friend who explains to people that planning is just like real life Sims, which to each their own. I'm not sure it is. There's definitely a lot of banging your head on the table, although I'm not sure whether he's sleeping or not. But planning is a bit of a funny one. I think some people think it's just kind of red tape, other people think it, blocks development. Certainly, if you read about planning in the news at the minute, that the government are quite anti-bureaucracy, but actually planning is really important for protecting heritage and greenery, and also promoting good design. So my kind of day-to-day responsibility is there's really no normal day, as cliche as that may sound, but kind of tasks that I do, I have to phone people, I phone clients, I phone councils, I phone other consultants, architects, ecologists, etc. I read a lot of planning policy, I'm afraid, so if you're not too keen on reading, it might not be for you. So it's an image of the London Plan, which is the spatial development plan for Greater London. Daniel, I think, showed the local plan, or at least part of the local plan for Leeds. We do a lot of design workshops and a lot of looking at plans. This is a master plan. Not all plans are this big. Most of them are smaller, like some of the plans Daniel showed. We used to go on site visits. This is a site visit to Cambridge, which feels so long ago. Now not so much. Virtual site visits are becoming kind of more of the norm. Unfortunately, I have to answer a lot of emails. That's kind of unavoidable. And I have to do a lot of typing, although not a blank screen. That's not very slightly misleading, isn't it? And I'd have to attend a lot of Zoom meetings now, which is something different that we've had to overcome over the past year. So all of these tasks really are to meet the end goal, which is really for us to get planning permission for our clients. And so I thought I'd just give a very brief overview of the kind of key steps that we go through to preparing and submitting a planning application. So the first one is preparing the planning application. So that's working with the consultants and the client who have hired us to understand the site, understand what the client wants to develop, and then preparing the plans, the reports for the application. I've put at the bottom, I know this is quite a crude kind of word image, so apologies for that. Engagement really is something that particularly Tib Boards believe is paramount and should really be followed through, from start to finish. Engaging the local community and the local authority is really crucial, we find, in getting a positive outcome at planning stage, particularly working with planners at the local authority, getting them on board with the designs, so you don't have any kind of hiccups later on in the process. So after that, we submit the planning application, which is a bit of an effort. You have to fill out some forms. I have to write a planning statement, and then we submit it to the local authority. They then receive it and they go through it and they read through everything. And some of them are huge and they have to go through hundreds of drawings. It could take some time. And then I have to work with the case officer to help them write up their report and then hopefully get it to committee. So here I've put delegated or committee. Delegated just means that the officer decides, which kind of rarely happens. More often than not, you have to attend planning committee, which is a lot of fun. And then here I've just put post-planning work, so that's planning conditions and legal agreements that sometimes we also do. So I'm just going to run through a couple of schemes I thought might be of interest. The first one is King's Crescent Estate. We were hired by the London Borough of Hackney to redevelop council estate in kind of northeast of the borough. I don't know if you guys can see my mouse. That would be helpful. Yeah, Emily's nodding. So this triangle is the wider estate, and the first phase of the estate is this kind of top bit, and the red line is our site that we were looking at. So yeah, so the existing estate you can see is a kind of not great 60s estate, has these really awful undercrofts that kind of encourage antisocial behaviour. However, there was a really, really successful kind of first 2 phases, and you can see some of the images to the side. That's won lots of awards. And so we were brought on to redevelop the next piece of the puzzle, basically. The brief was to retain all of 174 units on the estate and re-provide the existing community centre. All of the existing homes in the first, which are these ones, so you can kind of see it follows the same snaking pattern, were retained and refurbished. So they all got brand new balconies, sorry, and brand new communal areas and a brand new community centre. So we kind of had something to work towards. That's not to say there weren't challenges, particularly with the existing residents on the estate who understandably were concerned about, you know, what we were proposing to deliver. So consultation really at the very start of this project was vital, and I think this was the most consultation I've ever done on any project. So as you can see, we did some walkarounds with residents in all weather. We had a resident steering group that was set up specifically. They would join our design team meetings and work with us to design. We had children's play workshops, interviews, site visits to other estates, which is the image you can see on the right. And this helped really kind of ease any concerns that they may have, but also enabled the residents to genuinely have a say. So the eventual play provision that we put in was really informed by the consultation process. So this is the proposal in kind of weird model form. So 219 new homes, 174 refurbished, new community centre, new commercial space, including kind of retail, and then, you know, generic parking. And as you can see, the idea was to kind of infill the estate, but to kind of piece back together what we kind of saw as a broken city. This is the overall master plan. Next project was Brooklands Park, which is on, well, I think which is on the southeast coast next to Brighton, for those who kind of don't know where it is. This green blob was the park. We were instructed by the council again, Worthing Borough Council Trees and Parks team, to come up with a master plan to refurbish the park, which was quite run down. Unfortunately, there was a sewage treatment plant to the west of the park, and then a huge industrial estate to the right. So lots of issues with contamination and all sorts. So yeah, the park itself is really pretty, and there's a huge, beautiful lake in the middle, but in terms of accessibility, it wasn't great. There wasn't much seating. They have this really beautiful kind of wooden shack of a public cafe, which basically needed demolishing. Really beautiful kind of white concrete public toilets as well that weren't wheelchair accessible. They have a very well used play area that actually has wheelchair accessible play equipment that's really important to the local community, and we did a lot of engagement with play users in particular to find out what play equipment they found particularly useful, and what new play equipment they'd like to see in the park. So we came up with a master plan. The brand new community cafe is here with views over the lake, a new park, and then a new network of truly accessible routes. We worked with an accessibility consultant who we brought on board, who directed the landscape architects and got quite cross with them at various points. Brand new entrance into the park as well to make it look more welcoming. And so yeah, we submitted a planning application for this. Approval, sadly, because of COVID, I don't have any photos. They were meant to be on site last November, and unfortunately, construction start sites been delayed. But some kind of CGI images of the cafe and proposed types of equipment that they might put in. Last but not least, Oxford to Cambridge Regional Corridor was one of the first projects that I worked on when I joined Tibble. It was a government-run competition for a brand new strategy to promote development, including 1 million new homes across this area of the country. For those that don't know, so Oxford and Cambridge are two kind of major cities, really defined by the universities. Milton Keynes is in the middle, and then you have these kind of smaller towns and villages really in between. And the government are really keen to make it a knowledge corridor, and there's a very big need for new housing, particularly new affordable housing. So we joined a team, an all-female team, and came up with Velo City, which will be a unique new region based on village clusters, and in between each village cluster there'll be high quality cycle routes promoting sustainable travel and trying to get people out of their cars. These clusters will then be attached to a kind of outer loop, which will be public transport facilitated, and then attached to these kind of new transport hubs. I'm gonna now try and
Lizzie, sorry to interrupt you there. I'm just conscious of time, and just that some of our young people might need to leave at 15:15. If you can only stay on the call until 15:15, that's fine, you can leave. But if possible, could we move to questions? Unless, shall I give you 1 more minute?
No, that's fine. I think I'm like pretty much finished. Yeah, that's fine.
That's fantastic to see some really detailed like the detailed process behind, submitting a planning application and then looking at the master plan. And it's really fantastic to see all the images and some great examples. Actually, there kind of was a question that came up about...
Should I stop sharing?
Oh yeah, if that's okay. Sorry. I was just reading a message come through. Somebody asked, actually, what happens to the residents, when you were changing the look of the estate? Where do the residents live when you're carrying out that proposal?
Yeah, so King's Crescent was really interesting in that usually on council estate regeneration schemes, they tend to be quite controversial, and usually they involve demolition. The whole point was that we were keeping these residents and we were keeping these homes and making them better and not just getting rid of them. So all of the residents stayed in place. We did have a kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, kind of temporary accommodation for elderly residents or anybody that was deemed vulnerable for when construction happened. And we also had a little kind of site hub where residents could go, or families could go if it got quite, because it did get quite noisy, I guess, and bolting brand new balconies onto the side of the buildings. But yeah, no residents were displaced at all as a result of the development, which is really positive.
That's good. Yeah, that's really positive to hear. Completely valid question to think about. What happens to the people that live there?
Yeah.
Emily. So thank you for that question. Emily, I noticed that you were going to answer a question. Do you have to be good at geography? And can I slide in two other questions there? Because someone's also asked about, would you say you need to be good at art to pursue planning? So do you have to be good at geography? Do you have to be good at art? And also kind of off the back of that, does urban planning still include designing? Is there a design aspect? But, I've thrown 3 questions at you there. So whatever comments you have, and we can open it out to the other 2 as well.
I'd say no, you don't have to be good at geography, and no, you don't have to be good at art. However, having an interest in both of them would be beneficial to you studying planning at uni. For instance, if you're interested in geography, and especially the human side of geography, it's instrumental in some of the first year modules that you take, which is more the foundations, like the contemporary urban challenges, and even to do with the community and neighbourhood aspect as well. In reference to art, no, you don't have to be good at art. You don't have to be the next Picasso. You don't have to be able to draw. You're not the architect at the end of the day. But again, it would be good if you're interested in art and you like and know how to read drawings is more to the point. And final question, I forgot because of the training.
Yeah, I mean, I can pass that over to another panelist if you like, but the question was, does urban planning still include the design aspect in addition to organisation?
I would say yes, but I don't work in practice, but I would definitely say yes, because it is interdisciplinary, because it encompasses all of the sector, like what Lizzie was saying.
Yeah, would you agree with that, Lizzie?
Definitely, yeah. And I think just having an interest in design is obviously helpful, because that's part and parcel of the job, really. It's also helpful if you can read plans. Architects tend to be what's the word? Slightly patronizing sometimes towards planners, or think that planners perhaps don't have a design background. So I think it's always helpful to have a design background, when dealing with architects or other consultants.
Thank you. That kind of sort of leads into the next question, one that's come up quite at the top with a few people have liked. I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but is there any way of doing a bit of both architecture and urban planning in one job? Daniel?
Yeah.
Shall I put it to you?
Yeah. I think in a way, I would say urban design is something which does link the two together. And urban design is something which is almost like a section of planning. So you have within planning, some people can be really interested in heritage, or kind of have their own kind of specialist side, and then some people can be just really focused in design. So probably kind of urban design is probably the way forward for that. So when I studied planning at uni, I got to do some urban design modules. So that's looking at the kind of the spaces between buildings and creating good spaces rather than the actual buildings themselves. But that, for me, I guess is a kind of in between. A lot of architects do go into planning, I found, or have some sort of involvement in planning. So some people who do an architecture degree and may kind of go into planning and work for planning consultancies and kind of architecture together. So they are kind of interlinked, definitely.
Great, thank you. And what is your favourite thing to plan? That's one of our other questions. I'll ask you, Daniel, and then we'll hear what the other two think as well.
So in terms of kind of the projects I like to be involved in, I think residential is definitely the one which I suppose is most kind of personal to people. So if you're involved in projects involving new housing developments, that can be really interesting, just kind of in terms of the communities that it's impacting, and like a lot of what Lizzie was saying in her presentation, that's some of those projects have kind of really kind of personal and probably, yeah, residential. In terms of planning on a large scale, in terms of like master planning, it's not something which I personally have been involved in, which I think maybe that's what the question is saying, because there's kind of master planning as a kind of different section of looking at large scale and working out which areas should be kind of housing and employment, I suppose. But yeah, kind of residential for me. So.
Okay, residential for Daniel. Emily, have you, what would you say? I know, but I was wondering if you've done any sort of aspects of that in your course yet. Have we lost her? She seems to have broken up on my end. I'm not sure. We lost her a bit. Okay. Lizzie, let's jump to you and we'll see if Emily can come back in.
To be honest, I have no idea. I really enjoy variety, and so I wouldn't say I really have one particular project that stands out amongst them all. I think I would get quite bored if I was just doing residential at the time. I like doing commercial, and then maybe a community use, small scale and large scale. I think that's what makes the job really interesting. That's not really an answer to the question.
No, so not one thing, you like the variety.
Yeah. I would say, and I think if if you're somebody who enjoys working on lots of different things, that, you know, private planning consultancy and also, you know, public sector work, you get to, you know, speak to and meet so many different people as well. I think that's one of the real benefits of the job.
Great, thank you. Another question which might be good for you, Lizzie, I'm not sure. How long does it take to make a master plan? Or does that depend on the scale and size of the project?
Completely, yeah. One of the biggest master plans that I've worked on is an urban extension on Basingstoke. That's about 3,500 new homes and obviously new schools and new local centres and stuff. That's been in with the planning authority for 5 years.
Wow.
So these things do take time. Unfortunately, this kind of tends to give local authorities a bad name for being slow. But you know, as we were kind of saying, you know, you really have to get these things right. It's not just existing residents; it's future residents that are going to be living in these spaces. And so every kind of minute detail has to be worked out. But some schemes are fast tracked. Some of those large estate regeneration schemes, they're kind of, you know, 300, 400 homes. They can go through in about a year and a half.
Yeah, right. So from a year and a half up to 5 years.
Plus. We still don't have a decision notice. Yeah.
Wow, yeah, but as you say, those details do need to be worked out and things, so
completely. And also planning policies change, you know, things change all the time, unfortunately, so kind of having to keep up as well, I suppose, with changing contexts and different governments and different local politicians is also something we have to take into account. Bit of a balancing act.
Yeah. We had another question. I don't know if you want to answer this, but what's it like to work for Leeds Council?
Okay. For me, I love it because it's my hometown, but also I think it's really good working for a city council. I've had involvements working with kind of in rural areas, and they have a different approach because it's more focused on protecting the environment, which is obviously incredibly important. But I think in some city local authorities, it's about more on kind of development side of things, which for me I find really interesting. So yeah, I think that they're all quite different, I feel, the different authorities. But I think if you wanted to try and get a kind of work experience within your local authority, I think that would be really good. And it's something which I did. I got some experience in Bradford Authority, so it's close to me, when I was still a student. I think that's really valuable, just experience of what it's like in a local authority office.
Great, that's a good top tip there at the end. I know that at the moment it might be quite difficult to secure those work experience placements because of the pandemic, but hopefully once we come out of this, it might be we might be able to return to having those opportunities available to young people. Good top tip at the end there. Do we have any other top tips, Lizzie, Emily, for young people interested in potentially starting off going into this career direction? Emily, welcome back.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. I'm in my university house and the Wi-Fi literally just crashed on the laptop. So I was like on my iPad, on my phone, trying to get it. But yeah, I would say definitely if you haven't, it's never too early to join LinkedIn. And that's where you can follow the majority of private practices, and you can follow your local council as well. And it's never too early to start networking and messaging, and it's about that engagement. But I'd definitely say that because I know from my own personal perspective that it's very difficult to secure work experience placements, especially during the current climate. But hopefully that should be resolved by the time you get in my position.
Yeah, and we've got LinkedIn that's still working. It's still happening. It's virtual, so that is something that people could definitely be doing. That's great. Thank you, Emily. Lizzie, any top tips left?
Top tips. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think persistence is key, definitely. Don't be downhearted if you don't hear back. I think people are busy, you know. So if you don't hear back from somebody, maybe just give them a polite nudge. I know that I definitely emailed about, I don't know how many, 30 odd different practices, and I've probably heard back from about 2. So yeah, don't be downhearted if you don't hear back. It's not personal.
No, absolutely not. I think that just goes generally, is just like that, unfortunately, but just don't give up, keep going. But some really great advice there. Thank you. I'm conscious we've gone over time, so thank you so much for our amazing panel. I'm sorry I had to cut your presentation a bit short there, Lizzie. But we will be collating all of the questions that we didn't manage to cover in this live session and making sure that we do get some responses to you once we come to the end of our 10-week program. Make sure you sign up to attend our next live event next Monday, same time. We'll be we'll be hearing from professionals from the construction sector and hearing about different opportunities in that area. So yeah, thank you so much, and I'm going to end the call now. But yeah, thank you, panelists, for sharing your insight and answering some of our questions. So okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.